Hello and welcome to EveryDream 2 Trainer installation for Windows instructions. We're going to go through the installation of EveryDream 2.0 for your local Windows computer. So we have some installation instructions, and you can go through these yourself if you want, but I'm actually going to walk through it here on video and show you the process. So starting from the EveryDream 2 Trainer repo, we're going to click on Setup and Installation and just kind of follow through these instructions. So first step is to install Python 3.10. You can install it. Here are the links for that. There's the direct download for 3.10.9. It says AMD, but this is for all 64-bit computers. It doesn't matter if you're on Intel or AMD. So you can just run through the installation of that. You can do that offline. And then what we're going to want to do then is actually make sure that that is what starts up. So I'm going to open up command window here and pull this in. Just a regular Windows command is all you need. You won't need conda for this. And we're just going to double check that the Python version is showing up correctly. And here I've actually got 3.10.5 installed, but any 3.10 version should work fine. I have not tested it on 3.8 or 3.9, but I would go ahead and install Python 3.10 because there are potentially some dependencies that are going to want 3.10. So we see that we do have Python 3.10 installed, and so we're ready to move on. So we've got our git clone command, and I've gone to my H drive here. See here I'm on my H drive. I'm going to put it on my H drive. You can put this wherever you want. To get the repo cloned, you can just copy and paste that command. Just select this like this, and then Control-C to copy, and then go to your command window and right-click, and that right-click will paste it. And there we go. We are cloned. And then we're going to go ahead and change into that EveryDream 2 Trainer folder. You can see lots of exciting stuff in here. Then we're just going to run the Windows setup.command. I just typed in win and then hit tab to auto-complete it. And then we're going to hit enter. And this is going to set up the virtual environment for the trainer and put all your dependencies into a V environment, which is a little bit easier to manage than conda, since conda seems to cause people problems. So this will take a moment, but while that is running in the background, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit ahead on how the rest of the setup is going to work. So since this doesn't use conda, in the future when you want to launch it, you're going to open up a command window, go into this EveryDream 2 Trainer folder, and just run activate venvironment.bat, and that will activate the environment. It's the same thing as basically doing conda activate, if you're used to that. One thing that is changing now with support of both the 1.0 or 1.x, 1.4, 1.5 models of Stable Diffusion, and also supporting Stable Diffusion 2 and 2.1, is there are different model configurations. So we need to take that into account. This is actually kind of a complicated problem. And even if you read the discussions on the diffusers repo, and you can see comments from Patrick, one of their lead developers, the concerns are that these have different configurations. These Stable Diffusion 1 models and the Stable Diffusion 2 models have different configurations, so we'll do a one-time conversion on these to set them up, and then you'll be good to go to train on them. So if we go into download and set up base models, there's a little example screenshot of what's going to happen. Obviously we need to make sure we're set up first, but that is running in the background. We're going to let that do its thing. Here are the two base models that I recommend. It's the 1.5 with the improved VAE, and that is mirrored here on Hugging Face, so you can download it. And here is the 2.1 768 model with the V prediction. These are the two that I recommend. This one seems to be the best one for 2.0. 2.0 512 base doesn't seem like the best model. People don't really like it. And then the 2.0 768 is just worse than the 2.1 768, so I don't know why you'd use those. You can use the SD 2.0 512 if you want. There it is. Go ahead and download it. But you're going to want to go ahead and download those and place them into that folder. And I'm actually going to do that off screen while we're waiting for the rest of the installer to finish. And actually, it's just about finished. There we go. So I am going to copy off screen. I'm going to do these two models right here and get these set up. Yeah, so you want to just go ahead and download whatever base checkpoints you want and then just put them into the EveryDream 2 trainer folder. And I've downloaded the 1.5 VAE file and the 768, the V2.1 768 file. And you can use either one. I'm grabbing the non-EMA one. People have done the EMA and non-EMA both. It doesn't seem like it makes a whole lot of difference. If you're going to train larger models, do more training, probably the non-EMA one. But either one of these could work just fine. So I've downloaded those, and then we're going to just run a one-time conversion script to get these configured. So here is the SD 1.5 checkpoint, and it's already set up. Used the correct YAML. The image size probably doesn't matter, but we're going to put the correct image size for it in anyway. And then we're just going to tell it that this is going to go into the checkpoint cache, and we're going to name it SD15 and set up the scheduler and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and copy this command. This is already set up. This is named the same way that I've got my file here. So if you want to change this, you would change this part right here. So if you had a different base model, this one's set up for V1, any of the V1 models, 1.4, 1.5, or any other fine-tuned models that you're using, needs to be original config file V1. It should be 512. Prediction type is always epsilon for 1.0 or 1.x models, and then leave this checkpoint cache / here, and then you can put the name here that you're going to use to do resuming later. And I'm just putting in SD V15 VAE. I'm just putting the same thing in here, and I'll just need, this is the part you're going to need to remember in the future. So I'm going to copy that command since it's already set up for me, and then I'm just going to right-click and paste it into the window, and you can see that it put all the multi-line stuff in there, and then I'm just going to press Enter. And this is going to do a one-time conversion to set this up for continuation. And I probably will get this automated so you can just point to these checkpoints, but there is an issue where there has to be auto detection on these YAMLs, which YAML goes with which file. And this is a bit of a pending issue. Again, even the diffusers guys are the diffusers developers have kind of been warning about this. And also when you load, if you tune on a V2 model, if you load this into Automatic Web UI, you actually need to get the YAML into the folder and rename it. I'll show that a little bit later on how that works. There we go. So this guy is converted. And then I'm also going to do that here for the V2 768 model. And that one, again, is already set up. Here's the V2 768 model. You can see this one uses V2 inference-V YAML. It is a 768 model. It uses V prediction. And we're going to just take, this is our input file name, the checkpoint file name. And then this is the way I'm going to name it for continuation training later. So I'm going to copy that guy, paste him in, and he's going to do the one-time conversion. So there is detection code in the conversion script that will attempt to figure out what the inference YAML needs to be, but that is long-term. not going to, in the prediction type also, it's going to try and guess that, but it's very much better to explicitly tell it what it is. And so when you download a model, you should know, well, where did this come from? You know, if you download another fine-tuned model, you'll need to know what the base model was, whether it was SD1, any of the 1.0 models, or the 2.0 768 models, or even, I don't know if anybody's actually using SD2 512 base, but this would be how to do that one. That one uses the V2 inference without the -v on it. It uses epsilon prediction instead of V prediction. But anyway, these are the two that I really recommend. Alright, so that guy's done. Then you pretty much should be good to go ahead and start training. So let's go ahead and we're done with that. For the purposes of running through this, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create an input folder here in the EveryDream 2 trainer folder, and then I'm going to go grab some files to start training. So off screen, I'm going off to my other drive and grabbing some files. Okay, where is my cloud folder? Alright, so there we go. I'm pasting in my Cloud Strife stuff. This is just a whole bunch of images I have of Cloud Strife, because that will be fun to train. So there we go. It's all my Cloud Strife photos. So that's from a model I've done before, but it's a nice quick test. And then let's get into training. So first thing it's going to tell you is open up a new command window and activate the V environment. So we go into the folder and run the activate. So actually I will go ahead and so this, after I've already done my installation, I'm already in the V environment folder here. V environment rather is already active. You can see here that it's already active, so I don't have to do this, but I will show you that anyway. I'm going to start up a new window. So let's say that it's the next day. You want to come back to train. So we will go to open up command window, go into the trainer folder, and then activate V environment. So I just type in AC and hit tab, and it'll autocomplete for me. There we go, and my V environment is active. And then here is an example training. So that actually this is pointing to my my other drive. So I'm going to change that. What I'm going to do is actually open Notepad, and we will show you how to tweak one of these. So this one is already set up to resume from the SD15 VAE, and I will show you that. I'll show you how these are configured in case you have issues. Basically, this is how these guys work. When you run that one conversion, it actually puts them into this checkpoint cache, and so these guys are ready to go because they're turned into diffusers models. Again, that's a one-time thing, and then they just sit here. And then when you actually run training, though, you're always going to get a regular checkpoint or a diffusers version as well. You can use either one. So you can see here that I'm going to use my SD15 VAE, which is here in my checkpoint cache. I can also use the 2.1. For right now, I'll just use 1.5. I'm going to set this up. Since I put those in my input folder, I'm going to use the input folder. And for fun, I'll just go ahead and leave this as cosine. I'm actually going to delete that and the decay steps. The trainer will actually calculate the decay steps for you. You're going to want to name your project, so let's call this Cloud Strife. And batch size we'll leave at 6. Sample steps is how often we're going to get a test sample. Since I want to run a quick test for this video, I'm going to run just 100. I will just leave the learning rate at 3. Since this is a pretty small one, this is just one person, I'm going to do a checkpoint every 10 minutes. And I will go ahead and use the Atom 8-bit optimizer. And once you've got that set up, to run this, what this does is every time you see a little caret, that means that it's going to run the next line, and then the last line you don't want the caret. And then you can just copy this command. If you add anything, if you add something after this and add another argument, make sure you put a caret right there so that it continues. So I'm going to copy the command, go here, and just right-click, and you'll see that it put all of my commands in there. If you want, you can also just do this, take the carets out and do it all as one line, like this. And then you don't have to worry about the carets being present. But I like to do this because it's a little easier. I like doing this because I can see it's a little easier to look at this and see what each value is. And then we're going to kick off training. It'll take just a second to get this warmed up and going. And while that's running, there we go. While that's running, the other thing we're going to want to do while this is running, and I recommend you start doing this, is pay attention to your logs. So what you can do is open up another command window, go into your EveryDream 2 folder, activate your V environment again, and then you're going to want to run this tensorboard, and you can do this while this is running. Just open up another window, and then just run tensorboard log dir logs, and that is going to fire up tensorboard so you can watch what's going on. And then you can just copy the link here and open that in a browser. So you can see this is running. You can see, I'm going to open up and actually go to tensorboard. And here we go. So here's our tensorboard, and where you've got, you can actually monitor your training. So you can see here that this guy's cooking along, doing its thing. And we've got a number of things on here. Some more stuff will show up as we start getting through some more epochs. So first thing on the first set of cards is hyperparameters. You can see the learning rate here is going up. Since I used the cosine scheduler, there's actually a little bit of a warm-up, so it actually starts close to 0, or it starts at a low value, and it actually would have been 0 here really at the start, and the first log value is at step 24, and then it's going to ramp up, and we'll see this as it, actually I'll go ahead and just refresh this guy to force it. Yeah, you can see here it did a ramp up, and now it's leveling off at that learning rate that we set, which was 3e-6. Grad scale is something that I'll be adding in the future. So right now this is always just going to show 1.0. And then you can also see the loss. The loss bounces around a lot. It's not super useful, but it can be useful if you've got some really crazy settings. This can potentially go and show little carets and say not NaN. And if you see NaN in here, if you hover over these points and you see NaN, then something's gone wrong. And if we scroll down now, we can also see performance. And this is going to just show you a couple different things that tell you how fast things are running. And let's see, did we get a sample? Yep, so we got sample steps while we were waiting. And I'll show you what that does in a moment. So you can see here, this is images per second. This is how fast the trainer is running. This is useful because if you start up a video, like you start watching YouTube while training is running, your performance is going to go down. So it's something to watch out for. And sometimes I even see that where if you go and watch a YouTube video and then your card will kind of go into low power savings mode because it thinks it's watching videos, and it will kind of lock you into lower performance. So if you do that, you can at least see that it's happening. It's a little bit easier to see on a graph. We've got performances as minutes and epochs, so lower number in this case, images per second, a higher number is better. In this one, performance minutes per epoch, a lower number is better because it's minutes over epochs instead of amount of work over time. So it's time over work. You can see here that it jumped up, and that is because I generated samples. And you can see here, and there we go. I'm setting another set of samples now. So this is generating sample images to look at, and we'll see those in a second. And then the other one is the VRAM. This is just going to track how much VRAM the trainer's using. So that's just kind of useful. It is in exponential, it's in scientific notation. So here you can see it's 2.29 E4, so that's actually 22.9 gigabytes of VRAM. And then we're going to look at samples. So you can see generated samples here. And in this case, I didn't use sample prompts. Set up your sample prompts right there. And if you put in anything into your sample prompts.txt into this one, it will use this for the samples instead of just randomly picking from the batch that you've got. So we can look at those samples. You can see here it's going to generate, since I didn't put any prompts in, it's just going to pick 4. I think I have it set to just do a maximum of 4 so it doesn't get crazy. So there's Cloudstrife and his skivvies, because that's probably the one where I've got a picture of him in swim trunks. There is, right, so these guys are the sample images, and you can actually go in and see those in the logs too. So if we go into the logs folder, you can see here are my logs. I've got my log file here. This is going to log all of what you all did, all your settings, and then it's going to just have a duplication of what's in the system log, and this will just keep updating. And then if we go into here and we can go into samples folder, you can see the samples here as well. So I will adjust that. And what the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to order these by date descending so that the top ones are the most recent. So you can see here, there's the most recent samples. You can see the step at which they were created. So Windows kind of does that. Sometimes it scrunches stuff. But the generated samples, we'll show a close-up of these. You can see it hasn't learned Cloudstrife quite yet. This is at global step 99, so this is really early in training. See the global step 99, and it says an extreme close-up of Cloudstrife. And you can also see that the trainer generates a couple different samples at different config scales. So we got config 1, 4, and 7. And this is a good way to track how your training is going. You'll see obviously config scale 1, if just like at inference time, if you use config scale 1, it's kind of a mess. And then config scale 4 is a little bit lower, and then 7. And the reason for generating these at different config scales is to detect when your model is frying out. So if you start seeing that 4 looks good, but 7 starts to look bad, like it's fried or sunburnt, your characters look sunburnt, that's probably the point where your training is a little bit too strong. You're training a little bit too long. So that's the reason for getting different config scales. So I'm going to keep letting this go. I think I'm going to probably pause the video and let this guy run a little bit longer. So let's look at this one. And this one's actually starting to look a little bit like him now from the source images. So that's a good sign. It doesn't look like this is, deep fried. It doesn't look like it's super contrasty or anything like that. So that's a pretty good sign. Look at another one here. So this one is Cloudstrife. This is a tough one. Cloudstrife swings his Buster Sword with sparks floating in the air and a flower bed in the background. So it's not picking up all the complexity of that, but one thing it is picking up some of the sparks that are in those images. So that's pretty good. And these are always samples from, if you don't put anything in your sample prompts.txt, it is stuff from your last batch. So as this trains, it's just running through your images. Every time this runs a step, it grabs batch size number of images, and then since I'm letting it pick its own prompts, the prompts are just going to be whatever the last batch was. But again, you can open up the sample prompts.txt and type in your own prompts, 1 per line, and that's what will be used instead. And these are also all fixed seed. So these are all seed 555. No matter what. So you can see things as they progress without having a random seed. And then there's another one. This one's a Blender render of Cloudstrife and a black hoodie and orange t-shirt. So this is another one of those images that I have in my training set that is a kind of an extreme outlier. It's this weird outfit from a Blender model that is completely foreign. but the face still looks good. Now the rest of the outfit, it's not figured out because there's only one image in this particular black hoodie and orange t-shirt, but that's okay. So I'm familiar with this training set, so I know that that's okay, but it's good that his face is starting to look like him. Cloud stripe with cloud stripe hands on hips in a hallway of a Midgar subway area. And this one again, I don't have too many subway pics. So in the larger data set, I have more stuff like Midgar subways. I got subway pictures and lots of other things. But again, since I'm really only trying to train cloud in this instance, that's a pretty good sign. So anyway, there it goes. It's going to cooking. That's pretty much it for the logging right now. I am going to probably add, actually let's go really quickly back over the logging. Here's the cosine logger, and you can see the cosine logger went up to our 3e-6 value, and then it kind of tapers off. This taper is actually automatically configured based on max epochs. Let me go back. So I set max epochs 50. When I ran this guy, actually, I did max epochs 50, and then I did not put the decay steps. So this actually, the decay steps are automatically calculated for you, which should make it a little easier to use the cosine. So what this is actually going to do is the cosine is going to continue to drop, and it's going to try to drop to a little bit above 0 by the time we hit 50 epochs. So it just does the calculation for you. So I don't let it go all the way to 0 when I automatically calculate that. I let this get down. So this curve, it is going to be a sine wave curve or cosine curve really, and then it'll get down close to 0 and stop a little bit before it gets to absolute 0. Because if the learning rate actually goes to 0, then you're not doing anything, so it's really kind of pointless to let it go all the way to 0. So I figured that out for you. So anyway, again, this has been a little bit long-winded. I just wanted to show the basic setup of the repo, and we will have future videos on doing a little bit more with training, but this will get you started. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any problems, ask in the Discord. Again, mostly just try to make sure you're using the correct conversions, because that is important. But anyway, again, I'll just stop here because I'm going to ramble. Hopefully that was helpful, and you can get started. Again, ask for help on the Discord if you have any problems. Thanks.